Is there anything else before we finish that
But
you
I
want
don't
to
think...
give us some heads up on anything else that's coming along that we need to know?
Not at the moment. I mean, I'm surprised that you haven't raised the steam packet, of course. And the
Do you know
steam
what?
packet report.
I should raise the steam packet, shouldn't I, really? But again, go on, let's do steam packet. I thought we weren't going to hear any more about that one either, but go on, tell me what's going on.
Well, I was waiting for you to ask me a question, to be honest. But in relation to the steam packet, I mean, one of the things I do want to do is, and I'm only speaking personally, I would like to personally offer an apology to the steam packet and their crew, and their crew in particular. I mean, I have praised the crew previously. We did our interview on the 23rd of February, where I actually praised the crew for what they'd done. And also, of course, I was the one at the press conference that also called out the abuse that some of the crew were actually rather disgracefully getting on social media. But
so you're apologising for getting it wrong?
So I need to, this is me personally, I need to state, I can't speak for other people, but for me personally, I would like to apologise to the steam packet. What did you get wrong
exactly, you say then? Yeah.
Well, I think...
By not jabbing them?
I think the issue for me was the fact around the entry certificates. And in good faith, both myself and the Chief Minister were given information around the entry certificate that this inquiry
that they were in total isolation
actually,
all year round.
You
really believe that?
Well, we went through this in the interview on the 23rd
That's
of February.
Why
I said I had challenged it on multiple occasions, which I had. I'd challenged it in Council of Ministers and elsewhere, and the advice given on each and every occasion to myself was that they were in isolation. So there's only so many times you can challenge something before you have to accept it as fact. But I go back to what I said in that interview with you on the 23rd of February, where I actually came out and pointed out that I personally felt it wasn't practical for them to actually be in self-isolation permanently. Okay. They needed to actually be able to live their lives with their family, and that we needed to sit down with the steam packet and work forward. And of course you raised at the press conference when we said that the steam packet had a different view, and that's precisely why the Chief Minister commissioned this report.
Well, he was putting the pressure to do it, let's face it. I think it was a few attempts before he went for it.
I've got to be fair to the Chief Minister actually on this one, Paul. He did, because by the time we got to the press conference of the 23rd, I was announcing he'd already commissioned the inquiry, and that.
What did you make of the report, though? So, I mean, I've already said in another interview, I think with Chris Robert Shaw, it's been seen by other people in the media in the UK and people who deal with these things from Westminster, and this is a fudge. That's how it was basically, not in those words, but it just didn't point any particular direction. Well, no one's to blame, are they, as such? No one's losing their job over it. You're not losing your job over it. You're not taking responsibility.
I don't think it's a fudge at all as a report. And in fact, even the steam packet from their press release, unless I've misread it, has said that they felt it was a fairly fair report.
Someone's to blame. Someone is to blame.
And there is, and that is why we need to look.
You made an apology.
So
are you to blame then?
Well, no. As Minister, I can only go off the advice that I'm given, and the advice that I have at the time.
That advice was wrong, so someone's got to go.
So what we need to do is we need to look at what went wrong and make sure that it's fixed. There are several recommendations that came out of that report, both in terms of government and the steam packet. In relation to the government ones, the Cabinet Office ones, many of those were actually done even before the report came through, because it had already highlighted issues. But one of the things that the report did do is quite clearly make clear that lessons needed to be learnt, and lessons must be learnt off the back of this, because ultimately, the steam packet has done an excellent job over the pandemic period in difficult circumstances, and the crew deserve a great amount of praise for that.
What lessons have you learned from that report? It's the obvious stuff, saying there's got to be more conversations, more...
No, well, I think the immediate lessons, certainly from my point of view, from the report, is that, when it comes to things like direction notices, sometimes you need to take a step back and a breathe within government, and ensure that although it's urgent to get things in place, because we have to remember the situation, it's great looking back with hindsight now, and as I've often said, hindsight is one of those things that allows a lot of people to look very intelligent and very knowledgeable after the fact. But we've got to look back and actually say what was going on at the time. There was a worldwide pandemic, things were constantly changing, and things were being done quickly. And I think one of the things that comes to me is that across government, sometimes, despite all the things going on around you, you need to take a pause, a step back, and And actually...
But a report is done to try and find where the problems were. Somebody, you said you got the wrong advice given to you. Somebody, and I think a name was mentioned that came up, but not quite enough to make anyone hand in their notice maybe, but certainly, isn't that person responsible for giving you the wrong information then? How's that?
Well, I think there was miscommunication across...
Oh, so it's not wrong information, it's miscommunication.
I think it was miscommunication across the board, which led to wrong advice being given.
So no one's to blame?
But like I say, what we need to do is ensure that lessons are learnt off this. And I personally would like to apologise to the Steam Packard and crew, because they were going through a horrendous time running the service anyway, and what's actually happened, and that's one of the reasons I actually have prompted you to even ask this question, because I want to put on record.
I didn't think there was much more you were going to say on this, because I thought you dealt with it and I listened to what you said and that sort of thing. So good on you that you wanted to talk about it, but by that very nature, I feel so uncomfortable about not hearing that somebody somewhere has to take the rap for it almost. I mean, it doesn't mean necessarily lose a job, but at least name and, no, it's cliche, but name people where it went wrong. Positions, people being paid lots of money to give you this advice, aren't they?
Well, we have to remember the advice was to council and ministers, and it's for the Chief Minister what happens with the report going forward. As the Chief Minister quite rightly pointed out in House of Keys, when we're talking about this is exactly the same team that has helped steer us through this pandemic. We have to have some perspective here as well on the fact that the island has done exceptionally well.
Okay.
We are actually one of the, in terms of countries, even small island nations in the world, we've done exceptionally better than other people. And so, yes, this has gone wrong and lessons need to be learned. But I'm not in favour of witch hunts over one issue when, say, another 19 issues have all gone right.
And the jabbing thing, let's go back to that, having the vaccine. You were always asked about that by me and other people. You would no, they don't need it. Do you regret that part of the process as well? You didn't move them up the ladder.
It was based in relation on the evidence at the time.
Because you were following UK advice, weren't you? Totally.
Well, no, not totally. The preprint advice from the preprint around transmission. So we now, again, this wonderful thing of hindsight, people look back now and say, well, the vaccine reduces transmission, why wouldn't you do it? The first real evidence, so the first real clinical evidence around the reduction, which is the 67% reduction, was published on the 2nd of February. So it wasn't published in December, it wasn't published in January, it was a Lancet preprint report that was published on the 2nd of February. From that point, that was when the Isle of Man government was engaging to see about moving the vaccine forward, which we did.
Do you accept, though, it seemed now, with hindsight, an obvious thing to have done and would save the Isle of Man millions of pounds, millions?
Well, if it had still worked, because we have to remember there's no guarantees, even with vaccination, that someone isn't still going to pass it on.
Well, if you're a betting man, it would be a good thing to have done, wouldn't it?
But yeah, I mean, you would do it as a mitigation measure, but I don't think we can draw the conclusion and say it would have prevented an outbreak in that way. So,
weeks to come, we'll keep chatting maybe and work toward this day at the end of June, which we started this whole interview. You're still hopeful for at the minute?
At the moment, we are still hopeful for.